And hello again from Fox News in Washington on Veterans Day, when we honor the military for their service to our nation. And sadly, we begin today with the dramatic fall from grace of one of the most respected military men of this generation. CIA Director and retired four-star General David Petraeus stepped down Friday after admitting to an extramarital affair. Joining us now to discuss that and upcoming hearings on the deadly terror attack in Libya is the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Dianne Feinstein. Senator, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you very much, Chris.
In a statement Friday, you said you understand Petraeus' decision to resign, but that you wish that President Obama had not accepted that. After more revelations this weekend, do you still feel that way?
Well, I talked to Dave Petraeus twice on Friday, and he said to me, you know, I've done an egregiously dishonorable thing, and I need now to do the honorable thing. And when I thought about it, and for me, it's a heartbreak. I mean, this is a truly bright man, a credible person, a great leader, and could have really been a super transitional figure for the CIA. This is very, very hard, and I do think he did the right thing.
So now you accept that he should have done this.
When you realize additional complications, which I did not at the time I spoke to him, I think he did the right thing. I think the president really had no choice but to accept the resignation.
Well, let me ask you about those additional complications, because it now turns out the way the FBI found out about this is because Paula Broadwell, the mistress, was sending threatening emails to another woman whom she regarded as a threat to her relationship with Petraeus. What do you know about that relationship between the other woman and Petraeus?
Well, there's an FBI investigation that is continuing. I read both the Post and the Times this morning, and it's pretty well laid out, I think. I just hate to discuss it, except to say there are a number of things that one has to consider. The first of which, was there any kind of national security breach? To date, there was not. And the FBI has briefed me now. I actually wish we had been briefed a little bit earlier so that the full Intelligence Committee, one of the things that I've tried to do, Chris, is bring both sides together. So my vice chairman, Saxby Chambliss, and I share material and work together, and that's a very important concept. With neither of us knowing ahead of time, all of this obviously comes as a big shock, and we are very much able to keep things in a classified setting. At least if you know, you can begin to think and then to plan, and of course we have not had that opportunity. We begin our hearings on Thursday. This is an inquiry, it is not a single hearing. There are going to be many different aspects of it. And, you know, obviously Director Petraeus is going to be part of the hearing process.
Well, you said a lot, and I want to get to the hearings in a second. I have to ask you, though, directly. Do you believe, have you been told, that this other woman was also in a relationship, an affair, with General Petraeus?
No, I have not been told there was an affair. What I've been told is that there was somebody else that he knew and was close to, and that Mrs. Broadwell sent these threatening emails to her, and she was frightened, and she went to the FBI. I can't believe it, but that's what it is.
Let's talk about the FBI. By law, they are supposed to inform your committee of any development of significance to the intelligence community. This clearly passed that threshold. Is it true that you received no advance word of this? And are you going to investigate the FBI's decision not to tell you about an investigation that had been going on for at least weeks?
The answer is yes and yes. We received no advance notice. It was like a lightning bolt. The way I found out, I came back to Washington Thursday night. Friday morning, the staff director told me there were a number of calls from press about this. I called David Petraeus, and as a matter of fact, I had had an appointment with him at 3 o'clock that afternoon, and that was canceled. And so then when these questions came up, I obviously took the action myself to try to find out, and then informed my vice chairman. And I talked to the director twice. This is very hard stuff.
And are you going to investigate why the FBI didn't notify you before?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is something that could have had an effect on national security. I think we should have been told. There is a way to do it, and that is just to inform the chair and the vice chairman of both committees. This has happened before, not with precise same things, but none of the four of us have ever breached that confidentiality.
Let me ask you, and you raised the hearings, and we're going to get into that in a moment, but Petraeus was supposed to testify in a closed hearing that your committee is going to hold this Thursday about the attack on Benghazi. Now, because Petraeus has stepped down, his deputy, now acting director replacement, Mike Morrell, is going to testify in his place. One, are you going to insist on hearing from Petraeus at some point? And secondly, do you think there is any link between his resignation and the events in Benghazi?
On the events in Benghazi and his resignation, absolutely not. And I think if you really think this thing out, everybody will come to that same conclusion. So that's that. With respect to calling Director Petraeus or former Director Petraeus before the committee, that will be a committee decision. The hearing will begin with the DNI, Jim Clapper.
Director of National Intelligence.
Yes, and Mike Morrell, who's now acting director of the CIA, and Matt Olson of the Counterterrorism Center.
Do you think you need, I'm going to ask you about the hearing in a second, do you think you need to hear from Petraeus?
We may well, and we may well ask. I think that's up to the committee. I think we should have this first hearing, which is the way they wanted to set it up, and then the committee will make the decisions.
All right. Let's turn to the hearing, and as you say, it's not a hearing, it's an inquiry. What is your biggest questions, your biggest concerns as you begin this inquiry into what happened in Benghazi?
Well, my biggest concern is there are literally hundreds of threat warnings in the material that has been accumulated. There were 5 attacks during the year, 1 prior attack on the consulate itself. The question I have is, why wasn't something done about it? There are many options. One is to recall the ambassador, sit down with him, have his personal assessment of security, see what you can do, and do it. The second is to immediately beef things up in a major way. Changes were made, but the changes were not major. What's clear to me, and I went to the memorial service in San Francisco for Chris Stevens, the Libyan ambassador to the United States spoke, and twice during his remarks he said, "I am so sorry that we could not protect your consulate," which is a total admission that the Libyan government was incapable of protecting our facilities. This raises a major question for the future. We have 285 embassies and consulates over the world, and the threats pour in. What do we do? And
let me ask you, if I may, Senator, excuse me, directly. Do you think that U.S. officials in Washington had enough information beforehand, enough of these warnings to beef up security before the attack ever happened?
Well, that's the purpose of our inquiry, and that decision will be made by the committee. I've not had an opportunity yet to go through what are thousands of pages, and I want to do that. I want other members to do it. I don't want to jump to any conclusion, but it would appear to me, and this is just me, that the 5 prior incidents in the year, which aren't intelligence, they're not threats, they're actual attacks on the British ambassador, on our consulate once before, on a number of other things on United States missions. Now, that to me is sufficient intelligence to make a decision. Now, so we want to see what the extenuating circumstances are, that the security wasn't beefed up by us if it couldn't be beefed up by the Libyans, or we didn't close down the consulate.
Do you think, second question, that there was enough time in the 7 hours between the first attack on the consulate and the second attack at 5 o'clock the following morning on the CIA annex, that there was enough time to deploy U.S. forces to protect the Americans there?
My understanding is there was not. I can't be dispositive right now before we have these hearings and really hear the testimony on just that question. It is a pertinent question, it's an important question, and it must be answered.
One more question. There were also the changing stories after the attack, changing stories from administration officials about what actually happened. Just take a look.
Do you believe that this was a terrorist attack?
Well, it's too early to know exactly how this came about.
What happened initially was it was a spontaneous reaction to what had just transpired in Cairo as a consequence of the video.
Yes, they were killed in the course of a terrorist attack on our embassy.
The natural protests that arose because of the outrage over the video were used as an excuse by extremists to see if they can also directly harm U.S. interests.
I'm asking you personally, not as the committee as a whole. How do you explain these shifting stories and the president continuing to talk about the video after the head of the counterterrorism center said that it was a terror attack? And do you think it had anything to do with politics in the middle of a presidential campaign?
Well, I don't think it had anything to do with politics. I do think it has something to do with our assessment. And, you know, my view is very simple and very direct. The minute you know mortars are used, the minute you know RPGs are used, it's either a terrorist attack or it's a military attack. Those are the only two things it could be. Now, what is a terrorist? A terrorist isn't necessarily all one thing. A terrorist uses the attack as a vehicle, and we all know that now. Therefore, it's pretty clear the minute mortars show up, the minute RPGs show up, you have a terrorist attack.
So why was the president a week later talking about the video, especially when it turns out, and they knew in real time, there was never a protest to begin with?
These things can be assessed into oblivion, too. And I go by prior incidents. Prior incidents give me a good assessment of whether there's a high likelihood, so that the assessment can be with confidence. And I think that assessment could have been made earlier on with confidence. Having said that, again, I have not seen these hundreds of threat warnings. I want to go through them and look at them. I want to see see, this now comes down to our purpose. We have been very proud that over the time from 9/11, the stovepipes have been down, the intelligence has been better analyzed, it's been red-teamed, it's been passed on. We have a national security branch of the FBI, we have a counterterrorism center, and all of the above. Now the question comes, how does that all really work? This is a live incident to show something went wrong in the assessment, and I want to see exactly what it is. And I don't want to be premature. I don't think you want me to be premature either, Chris.
No, I don't.
Good.
I want you to tell us what you know, and that's it. Senator Feinstein, thank you. Thank you, as always, for coming in. When you know more, please come back, and we will follow your investigation into Libya every step of the way. Thank you, Senator. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
My pleasure. Thank you.